Hey, Melissa here. I'm at Dragon Man's inside of the Colorado Springs Historical Military Museum, or better known as Dragon Man's Museum. We are the largest privately owned military collection in the United States, and we do tours Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays at 10 a.m. It's a 2-hour tour. We take you through every war the U.S. was in, from Revolutionary and Civil War all the way up to Iraq and Afghanistan, and all the major wars in between. We also have shooting ranges, a firearms store, dirt bike tracks, paintball parks, and motorcycle rebuilding. So if you are not aware of us, check us out. I'll put the link to our website. We're open for all of that stuff Tuesday through Sunday, 9:30 to 4. Come out, use the shooting ranges, only $12 per person, shoot all day, no reservations required or caliber limitations. In the previous months, I was making some videos updating you guys on all of the gun bills that were introduced into the last legislative session, which ended May 8th. Some of them got through, some of them didn't, and I just wanted to give you an update on when those go into effect, what you should be aware of so that you are not breaking the law and you are educated and aware of what you should be knowledgeable about if you are a Colorado resident and so forth. I haven't made a video in a couple months because it's been incredibly busy at Dragon Man's, and if you've been paying attention, I have started to promote our Front Range Freedom Shoot September 7th and 8th. We're going to have a lot of companies out here, political representatives that you can do meets and greets with, museum tours, giveaways. We'll have a suppressor only range, a firearm and optic only range, and a machine gun only range, plus many other activities that you can interact with and be a part of. So definitely get those tickets. They're on sale. The early bird ticket prices are only until July 1st. So you only have a couple more days. Get those tickets because it is going to be an event to remember. This last couple of months also was a primary election campaigning period for a lot of people. Different candidates going up in the same political party. So that was really interesting for me to watch. And I kind of spent a lot of time just watching, paying attention to who was even running. And some of them made it in, some of them didn't. So I'll kind of go over that. In this video, I'm going to talk about the gun bills, the primary election results, some really exciting news about some people who got voted out, who were a huge concern in the last legislative session and the last 2 years. And then at the very end, I want to talk about the precedent that the Supreme Court set when they overturned the bump stock ban. So that was interesting, and I want to talk about that. All right, so getting into it, some bills that you need to be aware of. So effective July 1st of 2025, this is going to affect me. This is the gun store state permitting thing. But this one specifically to you guys, and for me, because I'm an instructor and I offer concealed carry courses, is the concealed carry permit training bill that got passed. It got signed June 2nd by the governor, and it will essentially now require you to take a 8-hour classroom and range time portions to get your concealed carry permit. You'll have to do a written exam and a live fire range exam with a passing score of probably like 90% or better to be able to apply for your concealed carry permit. The local sheriffs will be placing new rules as to like how instructors can be verified, and you'll have to take it from a verified instructor by their local sheriff's department. That will allow you to keep your permit for 5 years if you already have it. And this goes into effect, then you'll probably have to take a refresher course before you can apply for your new permit. If you don't have your permit at all, you'll have to take the 8-hour class, written and live fire exam, plus 6 months before you're about to renew, you have to take a minimum of a 2-hour refresher course that will also require written and live fire training. So exams. So that'll go into effect July 1st of 2025. So you kind of got a while. Maybe get the class taken care of before that if you don't want to go through all of that. However, this is one bill that I'm not completely opposed to, because I have always felt that people need to get live fire training before they can go and get their concealed carry permit, to not handle your firearm whatsoever and then go out and carry it and think that you can potentially save a life or take down a threat with no training whatsoever, not having handled your firearm, is just mind-blowing to me. And I highly doubt that those people will be able to act efficiently when they need to rise to the occasion. So you're going to want to take the range portion anyways, in my opinion. So sheriff's departments do have until August 7th to come up with those new training requirements for the instructors. That one, so I'm going to be talking about also the representatives who introduced these bills and sponsored these bills. You can be aware of certain names when you go to the polls this election. So that was put in place by Monica Duran. She actually sponsored 3 to 4 different gun bills. So she's out of Jefferson County. Mark Snyder of El Paso County, he's actually now running for a Senate seat. So he will be giving up his House seat. And then Kyle Mullica, Senator of Adams County. So those are the people who sponsored that bill. The next one is going to be the excise tax bill. This originally wanted to tax your guns, ammo, and firearm accessories 13%. It thankfully was reduced down to 6.5, but it's still wild because you're going to be paying that on top of the current sales tax that you pay in your area. If you live anywhere near like a Shields or a Cabela's, those people already pay like 8.something%, and then the additional 9% for an additional fee. It's not the Robinson tax. It's simply just to go to different things in the state or their local county. So you're going to be paying about 9% already. Out here at Dragonman's, we are only charging 5.13% out of city sales tax, which is what we require. We're required to charge our customers. So now you're going to be putting an additional 6.5% on top of that 9%, whatever, when you go to purchase your firearm. So you're going to be looking at around 15.5% sales tax on top of the price that you're already paying for these firearms and ammunition and firearm accessories. So this will be on the November ballot. Make sure you vote no to the excise tax bill on firearms and ammo. They're going to try to say that it's going to all these great causes and so forth, but those funds were coming from another source in years prior, and they just are for some reason not using those sources anymore. The Domestic Violent Victims Fund was coming from perpetrators' court fees and so forth, and it was brought up in one of the testimony hearings, why aren't we using those anymore? And no one could actually answer the question. So they can derive the funds from other sources. They're just choosing not to, and they want to tax our guns and ammo and the law-abiding citizens who have done nothing to the victims of these funds that it'll go to. Wherever, why the gun owners have to pay for that is the correlation just doesn't make sense to me. And I would highly recommend voting no on the excise tax bill come November. That was put in place by Monica Duran. She was in the last bill of Jefferson County House Rep. Megan Froelich of Arapahoe and Denver County. None of these are Republicans, by the way, but and then Senator Chris Hansen of Denver and Senator Janet Buckner of Arapahoe County. A lot of these bills are being implemented by reps just in the Denver and surrounding areas and Boulder County. What they're putting in place really does not speak to the whole state, so unfortunately the whole state has to handle the repercussions of these bills that they're putting in place. But that one will take effect. If it passes in the election, then the governor will actually get to state when it wants to go into effect. So vote no on that one. Sensitive Spaces bill was signed May 31st. It will be effective July 1st of 2024. So that will be in a couple of days. This is the only one that's really going to affect like really, really soon that you should be aware of. You will not be able to now carry unless your county opts out of it, which I'll talk about, but you will not be able to carry in government buildings, so like courthouses, anywhere where the representatives are, their offices, polling places, schools, obviously, that you still already can't carry in elementary, middle school, and high schools, but also now not child care facilities as well. And then you cannot carry on college campuses. And the last one would be, I think that's it. So those are all the new places where you cannot carry, in addition to federal buildings, DMVs, post offices. You can't carry on military bases. You can't carry in hospitals. So it will be a type 1 misdemeanor if you get in trouble for it. So not the harshest of punishments, but still be aware of that. And some counties actually can opt out of it. I believe Douglas County just opted out of that for their government buildings where representatives lie. So if you want to read into that, just feel free to kind of look that up online if you live in Douglas County. Some people will be exempt from that, like people in the armed forces, the National Guard, security personnel, persons carrying as part of the lawful and common practices of legal proceedings. Representatives who work in government buildings, they have until January 5th of 2025 to carry in those buildings until this goes into effect for them. So those that sponsored and implemented the Sensitive Spaces bill were Sonia Jaquez Lewis of Boulder and Broomfield and Weld County, Senator Chris Kolker of Arapahoe and Jefferson County, Representative Kyle Brown of Boulder and Broomfield County, and Representative Mandy Lindsay of Arapahoe County. You guys seen a trend in these people, these representatives, and what counties they're in who are implementing these bills? All right, next is going to be the secure firearm storage in a vehicle. So starting January 1st of 2025, this was signed May 15th by the governor, but it goes into effect January 1st, 2025. You essentially need to have your handgun in a hard lock container inside of your car if you are leaving it unattended, and then your car ideally needs to be locked, hopefully. And if it's not locked, then your firearm would be in a locked hard container. Your long guns can be in a soft container, but it needs to have a locking device on the trigger. So your car in itself is a locked container, but so if someone were to break into your car, if you leave the keys in it or somehow they manage to start your car, they're going to take off with the car and they're going to have that firearm anyways and be able to steal it, and then they're just going to have a locksmith open up that box. Or they'll just break into your car, take the lockbox, and again, have someone to break into it. So this bill in itself is subjective to me, but it got passed. So you guys have to have your handguns in a hard lock container. I don't know if it's going to be like harsh punishment if your handgun is in a soft container and you have a locking device on it. I don't know why that wasn't okay. If it's okay for your long guns to just have a locking device on the trigger as well. And then I feel like if they really wanted to make this bill efficient, maybe now have it to where your lock container has to be kind of fixed to the interior of your car or your RV, so they can't just take it and run off with it. But that wasn't in here, and pretty interesting bill, but nonetheless, that's what's going on. So that was put into place by Representative Elizabeth Velasco of Eagle and Garfield and Pitkin County, Representative Lorena Garcia. She supported all of the gun bills. Adams and Jefferson County, Senator Sonia Jaquez Lewis of Boulder and Broomfield and Weld County. She was in the last bill. She supported that one. And then Senator Rhonda Fields of Arapahoe and Adams County. So those are the ones that put that one in place. All right, two more to go. The gun store state permit bill. This will not affect a majority of people. It affects people like me who manage and own a firearm store. The lovely representatives, Emily Sirota, Arapahoe and Denver County, Andrew Bosnecker of Larimore County, Senator Jeff Bridges. This was like, I feel like him and Emily really wanted to see this bill through. But Senator Jeff Bridges of Arapahoe and Denver and Jefferson County, and then Senator Daphne Janae of Adams and Arapahoe County. So they were all in support of this bill. And the reason why now I have to have, requirements met by ATF and now requirements met also by the state. So if you are going to have a gun store, an FFL, you apply for your state permit. It's going to be $400 every 3 years. Then you'll have to renew. So you need to have now your FFL on a federal level and your permit on a state level. And then your employees will need to submit federal and state background checks every 3 years. You will now be subject to random audits by the state and on a federal level by ATF. And then also the owner and the employees need to take like a test to make sure that they understand like straw purchase and so forth. Obviously, I'm not against that whatsoever, but they could have just put a bill in place to, hire more ATF workers, to require ATF to now require this of the gun stores and so forth. If you are a gun store owner, definitely make sure that you understand this bill, signed June 7th, will be effective July 1st of 2025. And so you have a little bit of time, but then you got to make sure that you do that. The main part of this bill that really got me, that I wasn't okay with, that I really opposed, was that The first infraction is just a warning, which is fine because they don't really specify if the infractions will just be like clerical errors, which, yeah, I get that. That's a warning. But they said that your second infraction can have a consequence of a warning, suspend the dealer's license, sorry, the permit, or revoke the dealer's permit entirely on a second infraction. Is that a clerical error? It doesn't specify in the bill what that would mean as to why they would get their permit revoked. Obviously, I would assume that it's something really big. They're not going to just take away permits just because of a clerical error. But I feel like this opens up the door to some corruption if they really wanted to make gun stores go out of business. So that to me was very questionable and kind of unnerving at the same time. So we'll see what happens. And that's the only reason why I really was against this. And it will be regulated by the Department of Revenue. They will have to hire more employees. They'll have to train them to even know more about the ins and outs of firearm stores better than, the owners who have been doing this for like 20 plus years. So I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna calm down. All right, so the merchant category code is going to be in effect August 7th. So first you're going to be worried about the sensitive spaces bill going into effect here in the next couple of days. And then this is the next one that will go into effect besides the safe car storage bill go into effect January 1st. And then all the other ones are basically in July of 2025. The merchant category code is essentially just an invasion on your privacy. It now requires credit card companies to categorize firearm purchases under the category of firearms so that now, anyone type of organization that's really trying to search a person's firearm purchasing history can now just go in, get records from the credit card company, which they can already do, completely legal, which that to me is like kind of mind-blowing that they can just, hand over those records as well, but they can, which is why a lot of people pay in cash. And now, whoever wants to can be able to track those firearm purchases. Dragonmans might be putting in an ATM here in the next 6 months or so, or in the next couple of months, who knows, and I'm just trying to figure out that. But hopefully down the road we'll have an ATM so that if you want to feel like you are not, having this invasion of privacy on your credit card statement and so forth, you can just pay in cash. We are actually going to try to get exempt entirely because we have multiple businesses here, not just firearms. So places like Scheels, Cabela's might be exempt as well. I'm not sure how that's going to entirely work specifically. Maybe it'll just apply to that department, but that'll be really interesting if those stores will be completely exempt, because then it just defeats the whole point of this bill, because most people are shopping at Scheels and Cabela's. So how can you get an accurate insight to someone's purchasing behavior if that's where they're going? All right. A lot of the representatives who put these in place, in my opinion, will still get reelected because they're in a majority Democrat district. And the Republican representatives or Republican candidates running against them are just, there's not enough Republican voters in those districts. So those representatives probably will get reelected. So unfortunately, you got to get out and vote. You have to encourage, your friends to vote, and hopefully there can be a little bit more balance in some of these districts. But speaking of that, I'm going to go into the primary election results. Two great things to come out of the primaries this last Tuesday was Tim Hernandez and Elizabeth Epps, the two sponsors of the assault weapons ban bill this last legislative session, were voted out. So a huge victory in that regard. It's a pretty overwhelming decision by District 6 to vote in Sean Camacho over Elizabeth Epps, 62% to 37%. For Tim Hernandez, and I know he was out there campaigning like crazy, it was pretty close. So Cecilia Espinoza, she did get in over Tim Hernandez by a 54% to 45% percentage, but it was only a difference of about 700 votes. So that was pretty close. Interestingly enough, 8 of the 11 progressive Democrats that ran in this last primary actually were not voted in. So that lets me assume that Democrats don't want extreme progressives. And maybe they just want a little bit more logical Democrats that aren't going to be so extreme. But then on the other side, obviously Republicans, we had the GOP endorse a lot of candidates that didn't get in, but at the same time, we still had a lot of really great Republican candidates get in, and therefore I think we're still going to really be united in that sense and united as a party, and I think it's looking really positive for the Republican Party. So we just need a lot more voters to get out, because I think it showed that there was only about 22 to 25% of voters actually voted in the primary election. And I believe it was like 16% to 12% Democrats to Republicans that actually got out and voted. So you guys, you need to get out and vote. Like, you need to come get registered for our September shoot, our Front Range Freedom Shoot. We're going to have people out here getting people registered to vote, getting them educated on what's going on, having political representatives out here to give you that meet and greet, to educate you and give you insight as to what's going on in your state and get you to go and vote. It's also a presidential election year, so that usually drives a lot of people to the polls as well. And obviously, if you watch the Trump-Biden debate last night, you know, that was really interesting in itself to watch. I won't kind of get into that, but we kind of all know the generalized, you know, beliefs about what happened there. All right, in Colorado, so Greg Lopez took over Ken Buck's seat to finish out his term in the 4th congressional district, and but then again, that was the same district that was really watched heavily upon, like nationwide, because that was Lauren Boebert's district. She was up against 5 other candidates, which actually, you know, if you watch that debate, it was really interesting, and I think they all really did a great job. Tricia Calvaries, she's going to be up in the Democrat Party, and she won that nomination. So it'll be Tricia up against Lauren Boebert to take now Greg Lopez's seat, which was Ken Buck's seat. So, however, there was a lot more Republicans that got out and vote in that district, and because Greg Lopez won over Tricia, who was going to finish out the term, I'm guessing that Lauren Boebert would probably be taking that seat come the November election. The kind of race between River Gaston and Joe Reagan in the 5th congressional district was a super, super slim margin by 500 votes in the Democratic Party. River Gaston did get it over Joe Reagan, but really, really close races in some of these. And some of the campaigns kind of got like a little dirty. So it was kind of hard to watch and to figure out what candidate you should go for if you're in the same party and so forth. It got, some races were super clean. Other races I felt like got, you know, just a little bit dramatic. So speaking of that, was Jeff Crank versus Dave Williams in Congressional District 5. So Colorado used to have 7 congressional districts, and now I think with our increasing population and so forth, now it has 8 districts. So there was, you know, 8 you know, now there's going to be 8 Republican candidates and 8 Democrat candidates running for those districts. Dave Williams he was the chairman of the GOP, so everyone I think assumed that he would have a really good chance of getting it, but it was a very, very dividing margin, 65% to 34%, Jeff Crank over Dave Williams. So Jeff Crank will now be running against the Democrat candidate. And let's see, District 8, Gabe Evans, he was a House representative, and now he went up to be a, you know, congressional representative. So they can do that. Some reps are going over to, you know, run for different seats. And when that happens, then their seat just, you know, goes up to those candidates that want to run in that seat. So I really actually like Gabe Williams. He fought really hard on the gun bills last legislative session. So Gabe Williams in District 8, you know, definitely a good candidate if you're getting to the polls. I'm going to also mention some other great people that are going to be running. So Ken DeGraff, he's in District 22. He's a state representative, really smart guy, has a lot to add. If you ever get a chance to talk to him, he might be out here for our Freedom Shoot, but you know, just a really knowledgeable guy, has a really good perspective on things, really good head on his shoulders. So he will be going up against Michael Pearson in District 22 in the Democrat Party. But, you know, there was a 9,500 Republican votes to the Michael's winning votes of 4,600. So hopefully Ken DeGraff kind of has that in the bag. But again, actually really great candidate, really logical, really rational, really intelligent guy. So we'll see what happens there. Some districts didn't have someone running against them. So Monica Duran, she sponsored a lot of these bills. District 23 didn't have anyone else running against her, so I'm guessing that's going to be a vacancy spot that she might be running against someone to fill that, or I'm not entirely sure how that works. I tried to do some research this morning, and I don't know what happens if there's just no candidate running against them, if they just get it. So if you know that, I'd love to hear some insight on that. Leave a comment in the video and let me know what you think. What else? Same with District 42. So Mary Lindsay, Democrat Party, didn't have a Republican candidate in that district that I saw of. So definitely leave something in the comments if you know what's going on with that. State Representative Ryan Armagost in District 64, he was such a advocate for the gun, for these anti-gun bills, and he was really fighting hard against them. Added a lot of information, a lot of value to the conversations up there in the Capitol. So really appreciated Ryan. If you are in District 64, vote Ryan. He's going to be a great candidate. There are going to be some other ones as well, but I really could break it down all day. Barbara Kirkmeyer, she was a really great candidate as well. I believe she won her district for the Republican Party, and there were some other really great ones. I could really talk about this for a while. There was essentially, if you are not aware, there's 65 House representatives and 35 Senator representatives, and so when they go up in the primaries, there's well over 200 candidates running in those different parties up against each other, and then come the general election, there's going to be 65 Democrats, 65 Republicans going for those House districts, and then 35 Democrat senators, 35, so it's crazy how much you have to really pay attention and read up on these candidates if you really want to know what's going on. So I would recommend just reading up on the ones in your district. If you don't know how to figure out what district you are in, you can just go to the Colorado.gov's website. It goes find my representative, click on that. I'll be sure to put in this video as well. And then you can figure out who your state senator is, who they're running against, and then same with your House representative in your district. So be sure to look into that and just get educated before you go to the November election for those candidates running that district. Some of these districts, they just don't have enough voters, either on the Democrat Party or the Republican Party. So I think a really interesting one, Regina English in District 17, there was that one's super, super close. She had 3,108 votes on the Democrat side. She won 100% because she ran unopposed, and then she's going to be running up against Elizabeth Riggs, so 2,788 votes for Elizabeth, ran unopposed. But if you think about it, who would take that seat? It would be Regina if there's just not enough Republican voters that turn out. So you guys, you got to get to the polls. Like you got to vote. You got to get out and vote if you want to see any differences being made. If you don't go out and vote, you have no room to complain about what's going on in your state if you did not even get out to vote. Make sure you're registered, all that kind of stuff. I'll put some links in this video to give you guys some really good information on that. I just want to talk really quickly about the precedent that the bump stock ban, the Supreme Court striking it down again, set on June 14th. June 14th was actually the 12th anniversary of my mom passing, so I didn't really have a lot of, energy to want to put towards that on that particular day. I try to set that day aside to just reflect to my mom. But I really wanted to come back to it because it was really interesting. So this essentially, the bump stock ban obviously started when there was a horrible tragedy in Las Vegas. And it was during the Trump era where they felt like they had to do something. But essentially, when people were forced to turn over their bump stocks, there was a guy named Michael Cargan, a U.S. Army veteran and the owner of a gun shop in Austin, was required to turn over his bump stocks to his local, regulating agency. And he essentially then went on to file a lawsuit saying that this was unfair, that the bump stocks should not be classified as machine guns. It actually went up to the Fifth Court Circuit of Appeals, where they then had to really dive deep into this ban, and they stated that it didn't actually fit the criteria of a machine gun, and he won that lawsuit. But then it essentially finally made its way over to the Supreme Court. So when you initially heard about the bump stock ban being overturned, that was in the 5th District Court of Appeals. But now recently on June 14th, it went up to the Supreme Court, and Clarence Thomas, he basically really dove into the technical sort of aspects of the bump stock and said that you need to depress the trigger once for there to be rapid fire. And in 1986, the law defines the machine guns as weapons that fire more than one shot by a single function of the trigger. And he argued that with or without a bump stock, a shooter must release and reset the trigger between every shot. And the only thing that was causing it to look like it was repetitive fire was the recoil of the bump stock, causing the shooter's finger to come up and then reset the trigger without really having to deliberately do it. But essentially that is what was going on technically within the device. So the great thing about that case was that it just set a huge precedent that ATF can't just assert themselves and make these laws and create these bans, and there needs to be some sort of legality involved where the Supreme Court either gets involved and so forth. So really interesting stuff. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching the video. If you haven't heard of Dragon Man's, again, come out and visit us. We're 8 miles east of Colorado Springs, open 9:30 to 4, Tuesday through Sunday. Military Museum, open Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday at 10 a.m. Thanks for watching.